I guess it started off, I worked in corporate real estate, coming out of university, and worked with the Ministry of Health, with retirement homes and nursing homes. So enjoyed it very much. I think where that entrepreneurial moment came is, I was running the operations for Chartwell REIT, which is a very large REIT. They're doing quite well now. I still stay in contact with them. And I was writing the checks for the realtors, for the realty brokerages and so on, for leasing up our retail, which we typically built the homes with retail on the bottom, and then the nursing home or the retirement home units would be on the second floor and going up. And I'm looking at how much they're making compared to me as an operator. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? It's time for me to make the move. There's a lot more, I guess, reward for the amount of effort and work that's put into structuring a real estate deal. And I had a lot of background with it because my father was in real estate, so I grew up with it. And it made a lot of sense for me. It was natural for me. So I've always enjoyed it. It's been a passion for me. Golden Horseshoe Capital started in 2007. And we primarily have done in mortgage lending. So we would, similar to a bank, except we would do private lending. So we were a lot more flexible. We were asset-based lending. And I'll explain all of this lingo later, but
okay.
That's really the direction of the company. But over the years, we have invested in other things, other companies. We've invested in other types of real estate asset classes, specifically shopping centers. We had a recent exit out of a large fund in the US. So we did quite well there. But now it's been interesting. I've got a lot of investors that I've worked with over the years, and a lot of young people as well, asking exactly like you're asking, how do we get into real estate? It's so expensive here. And it's actually not that hard to get into. I think the harder part is the learning curve. But once you understand how it works, it's not as complicated as everyone believes it to be. And people can get involved in real estate with very little money.
Right. And how would you say, like, what was the name of the company that was the other company that you had?
Yes, that was HARP.
That was that?
HARP, and that was the shopping center fund. So that was, the brand was Hion.
Yeah.
And we bought shopping centers in the US, and that was our primary focus of that fund, is to buy retail shopping centers. And they were focused on, or we were focused on, grocery anchored and pharmacy anchored centers. So they're all needs-based retail. And it was an excellent model. It worked quite well. And that was running through our Richmond Hill office. And time-wise, it actually, in the end, when you look back in hindsight, it actually was perfect timing that we unwound the fund and gave the investors back all of their returns. And they did quite well. They did over 30% return on an annual basis. They did quite well on the fund. We did very well. But who knew that a year later, the pandemic would come and retail would go, down significantly. So, thank God it did work out in the end. Obviously, we were disappointed at the time, but now sitting here looking back, it was perfect timing.
And how would you describe the real estate market in Toronto, like specifically? And then how has it kind of moved and changed during the pandemic for you guys?
I think there's two sort of extreme opinions in regards to Toronto specifically. And you can sort of put it across the board to Vancouver as well, so right across the country, is that, it's a bubble, it's going to burst, prices are going up, they're too high, it's going to come down. But our belief is the opposite. We believe that we're going through what we call a Manhattan effect. And we're getting, and Toronto is rightfully so in that category. We've got the four major sports teams. We're, fourth largest population. We've got all the makings of a major North American city. We already are. So why wouldn't real estate prices go to that level? Now, the other comparison to that is we're in Canada. Canada has a totally different government. We're more conservative. The mindset is different, and the world recognizes that. And that's why our immigration is so strong. I mean, pre-pandemic and hopefully post-pandemic. So people around the world recognize what we're selling in Canada is the lifestyle. It's safe, universal health care, good education, beautiful place to live. All of that is there, similar to what maybe a pitch that Switzerland would have, So I think that's where we're headed. And it will be very expensive to live here in Toronto. It already is in Vancouver. And I don't see it coming down. I think we're just going to continue to go up. And it'll, just like in Manhattan, it's normal to be a renter. And Toronto will get to that point where it'll be normal to be a renter.
Right. And who would you say are the typical, it's not typical, but to generalize, what is the average person who reaches out to you guys, who gets involved? Like, how would you describe this person at this point in time?
Maybe, yeah, I can answer that by explaining what the company does. So Golden Horseshoe Capital, by being a private lender, typically the person would find us because the banks are giving them a hard time on their purchase of a real estate property, whether it be commercial real estate or residential. And more recently, during the pandemic, we have been getting a lot of residential requests. The banks are being quite difficult with the paperwork that they require for approving mortgages. And so we have good quality borrowers coming to us, but for whatever reason, they just don't meet the requirements for the bank, or it's a longer dragged out process and they just don't have the time to go through that longer process. So our mandate and our mindset for the investors is that we're looking at the property. So we're not so concerned with the borrower per se. We're rather validating our loan on the value of the property. We have our appraisers go out there, we do our inspections, we do all of that. And if we know that the value is there in the property, and of course we want to know the business case for the borrower and the client, but that's our priority, is mostly on the real estate. And we have an underwriting team that goes through that. We are also buyers of real estate, so we look at the property from a different perspective than the bank. So it allows a lot more flexibility. We can close faster. We can help the investor or buyer or borrower get into the property faster. And then we can help them refinance with the bank later. When once they're the owner, they have a lot more time, and they can do a refinance and get the cheaper bank rates that everybody wants.
Right. Okay. And for millennials and younger, when I've heard young people talk about real estate, or when I've met a young person who has invested in that area, it's often that they've bought a condo and they're renting it out, or something like that. And in this time, in history, there's less job stability for this generation. There's way more entrepreneurship. And I think thinking long-term and preparing for retirement, it's something that's in the back of a lot of people's minds, but going on that journey and really thinking about all the moving parts, even though it's becoming necessary for us to plan and think long-term, it still can be a really intimidating experience. So real estate is one of those things where even when you're speaking, I'm your language, like you how you said, like you'll explain some of the lingo. It's like it's intimidating, and getting
Yeah.
into something, especially today, where a lot of young people are kind of focused on if they have a side hustle, or if they want to do something entrepreneurial, they want to do something online, like they want to grow something online. And I mean, that's really common. So to have like physical, like to enter this kind of physical investment situation, and like how do we view it and like get over that intimidation factor?
Yeah, okay. I guess I can address that. Definitely, you mentioned some good points. I mean, with the young people coming into the marketplace, employment, and looking to invest their capital or their savings into other investment vehicles, real estate always comes up as a vehicle that they should be putting their money into. The challenge, though, and we talked about it earlier, is how expensive Toronto, or across Canada really is. It's expensive and it's hard to get into. And buying real estate, I mean, one of the first challenges is the down payment, right? And a lot of young people don't have that. They don't have the down payment. And then once you get beyond that first hump, now it's owning the real estate, it's finding a tenant, it's all their phone calls from the tenant, and this is broken, that's broken, and you're just hoping at the end of the year you're breaking even at least, right? The rent is enough to cover all the expenses of the property. So typically a tenant will pay all the utilities, but then you still have the property tax, the insurance, the repairs and replacements for the building or the house or whatever condo, whatever you're buying. So it becomes very intimidating. And I guess one vehicle that we're offering that allows the younger group, millennials, whoever they may be, get involved is similar to what we're doing. It is mortgage lending. If you're investing in mortgages. Now, we promote that especially for young people because, number one, there's no down payment needed.
Okay.
And then you're not worried about the financing cost and the finding a tenant and all the time consuming property management things that you have to do as an owner of real estate. And we have a fund, and the investors would put whatever capital that they have, and maybe it's not enough for a down payment, but it's definitely enough to be part of a mortgage fund. And when they invest in that, whether they have 10,000, 20,000, whatever it might be, or 100,000, it doesn't matter. They can still participate. And what happens there is that we, as a fund, we're able to offer mortgages to other buyers of real estate, and then they pay an interest on that money, and so that interest comes back to the young people, the investors that are investing in the mortgage fund. So it's a way for them to receive passive income, and they don't have to do all of the work that's involved in owning real estate. But they still are investing in real estate, and they're collecting a nice interest on their investment. It's secured by real estate. So people say, okay, if I invest in a mortgage, what if the borrower doesn't pay, and then I don't get any interest, or they do something to the property and they ruin the property. Those are natural hesitations or natural objections. I think one of the things is that in the worst case scenario, the real estate is still there, and we can liquidate that property, and the investors can get. And in Toronto, you're going to get a profit when you liquidate, right? So the investor will get their principal back and their interest back, if everything is done properly. And in terms of risks with the property, I mean, you would have that even if you were to own it yourself. All those risks are there. And of course, you have property insurance. So when people think of the worst case scenarios, they're not worst case scenarios, because ultimately you have real estate that's securing your investment. Now, same money, you take 20, $100,000 and you put it in the stock market, if that stock drops, it goes down, there's no security. It's gone. That money is gone. You're just hoping that maybe that stock will come back up. However, with real estate, it's bricks and mortar. There's land there. We can sell the property. We can recover the money. So there's, and that's why it's, people know that real estate is a good investment because it is something that you can liquidate and recover.
So you mentioned earlier that your father was in real estate and you were exposed to this world when you were growing up.
Yeah.
For someone who has no exposure
Yeah.
and who's maybe never thought about real estate, what are some of the reasons to think about it or to like get involved, or what are the benefits from that mindset if someone like has absolutely no knowledge? Like what are some things that might inspire them to enter this space?
Yeah, I guess I mean, one of the most important things I think is in the many years ago, you went to work at a company, you worked there for 40 years, and you have a pension, and now you have a retirement plan, and you retire and you have your pension income coming in, or RSP money or whatever it might be, and you've secured your retirement future. Nowadays, that doesn't exist. People are moving in, and it's a different world. So you're not typically seeing a young person join a company and then stay with them for 40 years and build that pension and that nest egg for the future. And on top of that, there are a lot of cost of living considerations, right? As they get married, they have to buy a home, they have children, there's tuition, all of those things come up, and your income from your primary job may not cover all of those things. So it is important to have some kind of other vehicle that's going to generate income for you. And, people have different vehicles that they use. I mean, whether it's the stock market or real estate or other businesses. But real estate, obviously I'm biased, but I do believe that because you are having the security of a physical asset, you can safely invest in something that that at least your principal should be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the initial safety or security of your principal investment is the passive income. And to be able to make money passive while you're doing what you love to do, and you have this extra stream of income coming in, that's huge. That's so valuable for not just for your retirement, but just for your regular lifestyle going forward. So it's important, and everyone would agree. Whatever vehicle you choose, you have to have your savings or your money working for you.
Right. So during the pandemic, like I saw on the news, I saw online where so many smaller businesses were struggling and suffering, and even the area that I'm in now, like there's so many storefronts that are closed down and for lease. And so going into the future, what do you see? Because so many businesses are going online or like making that shift. So what do you see for the future with regards to like when we're walking down the street and there's all of these buildings and all of these storefronts that were normally, like little shops and restaurants, and how do you envision like the city moving into like this kind of space where so much is going online and so many people are making that transition from bricks and mortar?
Yeah, it's interesting because it is also a transitioning population as well. But I think one thing, I mean, you have the older or baby boomers that are used to walking into offices, into stores, and need to touch and feel their merchandise, and that sort of mindset. And you have the younger, called the millennials, that are fine with buying online, even their clothes and all that, just, and obviously the online platforms have set up very well, especially over the pandemic. You can buy something, receive it, try it out. It doesn't work, you can return it. So it's very convenient, very easy. So it is a huge impact, absolutely. And the pandemic has just accelerated what, a lot of people believe was inevitable. We were going to end up in an online platform eventually. And people like that convenience, right? And that instant gratification. Just press something on your phone and it shows up to your door the next day. So, or same day even. I don't know, in terms of retail, apparel and merchandise and that kind of thing, there will be a significant impact, definitely. We already saw it with bookstores and those kinds of things a lot earlier, with things going online. But I think in terms of service-based retail and businesses, like you said, restaurants, I think people can't wait to get back into a restaurant and meet with their friends, and even just a coffee at the coffee shop. People miss that. They need that. And that goes from young to old. I think everybody misses that social interaction. And I think there'll always be a place for that. So maybe the look of, like you said, you're walking down the street and there's all these stores and businesses. I think you'll see a lot more service-based businesses and anything that's more apparel and product-based. Those will go online. There may be small outlets where you can just visit the retail unit just to try something and then order it, and then it'll show up. It's similar to like Tesla has and Apple has. You'll just have a simple storefront just to try something out, but the actual product is going to be delivered to your home. So I think there'll still be a need for that. That's still going to be required. But the human interaction, I think, if anything, the pandemic has amplified the need for us to want, and we all want that. We all want to be able to go back to a restaurant or a social outing and be out there. So I think there'll always be a place for that. So I'm not concerned about that, but you're right. There will be a different look when you walk down the street.
Yeah. And so when you have a goal, like in your journey, in your entrepreneurship journey,
yeah,
how do you envision that? What's your personal process for, like, okay, this is where I want to go, or this is where I want the team to go, like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Because every market and industry has its like constantly changing factors. So how do you personally set those goals and stay focused on them and kind of like start building them into physical reality? What's that process like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for us, similar to how we looked at retail, I think we've always looked at what does the customer need, right? And we always worked with that. Everybody wants a lot of things, but wants doesn't bring them into the office or bring them to your website, doesn't bring them to engage fully, right? And I think, especially in the mortgage world, it's a need, right? They need to buy this property, so they need a mortgage to make the deal happen. So that's always been our mindset as a team is, what is the market need? What are they looking for? So, and we do have, or we have adjusted, over the last, it's been 14 years as a company. So a lot of things have changed. Sometimes it's process that's needed, and we've gone through that in terms of streamlining that. Before it meant the client would come to the office, we'd sit in the boardroom for 2 hours and we're going through all the paperwork. Now it's very easy. We've also adapted with the website. People can upload their documents straight to the website. There's no need for this big long 2-hour meeting anymore. So we've made that easier for the customer. Then there's things like how we structure the deal, interest rates, how we charge the client, whether it's on a monthly basis or a balloon payment, all those kinds of things. We are basically are adjusting according to the customer's need. Sure, everybody wants low rates and they want, they want a lot of things, right? They would love for Toronto to drop prices significantly so that they can get into the market. But when we look at what's reality and find out, okay, what is the need? What do the young people or our client base, whoever comes through that door or to our website, what are they looking for? What do they need? And we always try to narrow and target that for each of our clients, but even as general as a company. The needs-based business mindset is how we've always been operating.
And what would you say, like, your stereotypical day looks like? Like, when you get up in the morning and you start working, you head into your office, your home office, wherever you're going, meetings. What does that look like?
It's really changed since the pandemic. We used to all go to the office and we would have meetings there and strategy meetings, team meetings in the morning. We even had a morning exercise. I mean, everything that we did was very interactive. A lot of meetings on the boardroom with the whiteboard, and as a collaborative group, we always worked that way to quickly get to solutions for the client that we're talking about, and then move on to the next client and so on. So we would, and we had our list of all of our clients on the whiteboard, and we would just knock out each case one by one. And that was what the day looked like typically. Now, with all of us working at home, it is very similar, but it's all digital. So we have a video team call, just like we're speaking right now, except there'll be multiple people on the call. And then we have a shared document so we can see. It's sort of what we call a virtual whiteboard. And we talk about each of the clients as we go through. So it's very similar, but it's different when you're not physically together. So that's still a bit of an adjustment.
And what would you say is, because you mentioned before when you were working with, like when you had a position, and then what do you find is like the major difference now that you're like a president, and what are the major differences from when you have like that role versus like when you're working in the industry, or like when you take on that kind of leadership?
Yeah, I think, and everyone that goes through that process or transition from working in the corporate environment or, a job, whatever the job looks like, but a salaried position, let's say, to entrepreneurship, there is a couple of sort of, I wouldn't call them obstacles per se, but they're definitely in front of you and you have to address them. And one is, what's going to be my regular income? How am I going to pay my bills? If I leave this regular salaried position, how do I know that I'm going to receive or make the income to pay my obligations, my responsibilities, my bills, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's always a big transition. Some people will put one foot in and one foot, out, and maintain a part-time job or whatever they can to keep some income coming in while they're pursuing their dream, their entrepreneurship. And other people would jump both feet in and go for it, right? And there's no right or wrong way. I think it depends on what point you are in your life. If you have a partner or not, if you have children or not, who's relying on you, and you have obligations. So you have to make the decision that's best for you, and that you can believe will be a a strategy that's going to work for you. I think for me, I've always been jump both feet in and let's go for it. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. We can try something else and
Right.
just keep going. And I've had that mindset even in as a coach. And I coach basketball, so it's very similar. I relate basketball to life, and you got to go for it. The clock's ticking in the game of life and the game of basketball. Game's not over. Let's give everything you got. The score might not look great for you, but the game's not over, so you might as well just give everything you got. And when the game's over, fine, you can complain, you can say this didn't work, that didn't work. But when you're in the middle of the game, whether it be basketball again or life, you got to keep going. You got to keep playing until the final buzzer buzzes, right? So that's always been my mindset. And if you can leverage it with a part-time job or whatever it might be, that's good. There's nothing wrong with that either. My mindset is just go for it.
Yeah. So speaking more on that, how do you has there been a time in your journey or multiple times in your journey where it was like it looked like it might be over, or it looked like not realistic enough, or how do you get over those? How do you keep being resilient? And what's your personal process when you hit up against something that is okay, if I'm this size and I have to grow to this size, but it's you have to make that bridge, build that bridge, and it looks overwhelming, and it looks like maybe there's parts of it that are not coming together. How do you move through that as a person?
Yeah, that's been sort of an evolution for me to understand that process. I think when I was younger, I would just try everything and anything, stay up late till 3, 4 in the morning, just trying anything and everything, and that wasn't fun. It was a struggle, it was stressful, and then you put so much work into it, you're exhausted, and it still didn't work out, right? And it's frustrating, it's discouraging, and so I think over the years I've developed sort of a mindset that I'm not going to force anything, and sort of trust God, the universe, to sort of lead me in some way. I mean, my mindset really is, whatever's put in front of me, I will give my 100% to it. But if it's not put in front of me, but it was put in front of my competitor, they're, good for them. They were blessed with that opportunity. I didn't get that opportunity, so I can't complain. I have to work with what's been put in front of me. And my promise to myself is, if an opportunity, however big or small it is, that's the next step that's been put in front of me for today. And maybe I'll get 3 steps in the same day. But I will put all of my effort into whatever's been put in front of me. So I get a phone call from a potential client. I got the phone call, not my competitor. So now I'm going to give that phone call all of my attention and work with it. If it didn't work out, well, it was put in front of me for a reason. Maybe I learned something out of it. Maybe there was something that I didn't understand before that I do now. So I'll always try to take the positive mindset on that. But the days of sort of forcing and trying all kinds of different ideas and just trying to make something happen, I think I've evolved beyond that now, and I just work with what's put in front of me. If you give me something, an opportunity, a phone call, whatever it might be, I'll give it my all, and we'll see where it leads.
Right. You mentioned earlier doing having a venture in the US, that was a bigger event. And I remember you talking about that before, years ago. I remember you mentioning that. I feel like it was happening right then.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, speaking on what you just shared, when you have something that is you know, different city, different country, different rules, different policies and procedures. How do
Yeah.
you pivot and how do you pivot quickly enough to keep up with that momentum, or to learn all the differences that you will need to know just to be, you know, be interested in that and take full responsibility for that opportunity? How do you pivot as quickly as as it, like, the pressure feels we're supposed to?
Right. Yeah. No, it's an excellent question, and I think that every entrepreneur will encounter it at least once, probably at the beginning of their process. You see an opportunity, or you're told about an opportunity, or you just you understand following another company that's way ahead of you, and you want to be like that company, and you know that they've made a certain step or a move, like expanding into the US. So it's the right thing to do. So that's one thing, and that's great if it's the right thing to do. But I really feel that if you're not excited about it and you're not passionate about that move, don't even do it. Even if everyone tells you that's what you're supposed to do with your company, that's the direction you're supposed to go. If you don't have the excitement about it and the passion for it, then don't take, because it is like you're saying, it's a big leap. You're going to a new country, new rules, new legal system, new everything. And if you're not excited about it, it's going to get really daunting, and it's going to get very difficult. It's going to get expensive, and you're going to be frustrated with all the costs that are involved with this big move that you're making. But if you're excited about it, you'll stay up to 3, no problem, right? You'll make all the phone calls that you need. You'll meet with experts and lawyers and accountants and whoever you need to meet with, because you're excited about this and you know that this is the right thing to do, and this is going to be great for your business. But
Yeah.
if you don't have that passion, then don't even make the jump, because you're just going to exhaust yourself for something that you don't even care about if it works out or not. So that's first. That's got to be there. But then once you establish that that you want this has to happen. This is the right thing for the business. In our case, the investors were excited. They were behind us. And we knew that we were going to find significantly better deals in the US at that time. And that was the right way to go with our company. It was the right direction. And then it's really about just being smart about it. You're not going to read every book that you need to read, and read every law and bylaw and everything that you need to understand. So you need to start partnering with the people that are local in the other country, or in that other industry, or in that other field. Start partnering and leverage off of other people's experience and their knowledge. And that makes it a lot easier when you're trying to tackle a new vision for the company, or a new strategy, if you have a team and you can rely on people. And it may take some time to find the right people. You might have to interview a few lawyers, a few accountants, whatever it may be, whoever the engineers, whatever the expertise that you require. But when you find those right people, now you've got a team, then all of that just builds your confidence to keep going, right? If you've got a strong team, you can take on another day, and then the next day. And as you're saying, as it gets harder, and more challenges are coming up, because it's a foreign environment to you, because you have built a team and a passion behind it, you can take on those tough days as you work towards that goal.
Right. Okay. And where can, like, for people to learn more about this industry, and where can we find your books? Like, I see that I think you have 3 books. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
We
where
have
can we find
a
your
number
books?
of manual
And how
statements.
can we how can we find you online? And
So really easily, just go to our website, goldenhorseshoecapital.com, and you'll be able to, depending on why you're there, what you need, you'll be able to navigate through there. And then our team is always available. It's easy to schedule a call on the website, and we can always sort of customize what it is that you need.
And when it comes to your personal journey, what do you wish that people asked you more about? Or what do you wish that they were more curious about?
I think in terms of getting involved in real estate, like we talked about at the beginning, I think that young people should get involved in real estate sooner than later. It doesn't have to be, 10 years of working and I've saved up and I'm ready now, I can buy something. You can get involved right away. And I think there is not enough education out there to explain that to young people coming into the investment world, but in real estate world. That's probably what I would encourage young people to ask more questions, try to understand, because it is all those things that we've spoken about today. It's passive income, it's your retirement, it's security, it's it's a place to put your hard-earned money into a secure investment.
Right. And how would you say, from when you began to where you are now, what are some of the aspects that are completely different than you imagined? And what are some of the aspects that turned out to be similar?
Okay. It's constantly been changing. When I started, and it's not just me. I think anybody that has any experience with real estate has seen that things have really changed from the beginning to the end, or till now, I should say. Um, Going back to the 90s and early 2000s, real estate was done very differently. A realtor, for example, was more like a lawyer, and that mindset of creating a structure and a contract between buyer and seller. It was a lot more formal. Now you can see that you can do transactions online. You can find properties online. You can inquire. You can do all. Technology has made a big change in regards to how real estate is viewed, how it's accessed, how information is accessed. And it's all for the good. I think, in my opinion, is it's all good. It's benefiting everybody. It's making real estate more accessible, and information is coming through technology. And I think it's a great way for real estate to be transacted.
Okay.